set up our CyberRange local area network or LAN. That's essentially what's happening here. In a physical environment, we'd have to take all our computers, spread them around the room, connect them with network cables to a switch, and then connect the switch to the router to the internet. On this side of our diagram, this line here, here's our firewall, our router. And then you can see here that there's a network connection to that, and then there's another network connection to that. Because it's virtual, they're all in the same box, but really we should have another computer here that connects, another computer here that connects. So this line with everything connected to it represents a local area network. We're going to do this in our virtual environment. And the way it is now, here's one of our VBoxs, say the server. Here's another one, say the workstation. And each one has an independent connection to NAT. What that means is that they can actually have the same IP address because the connection is independent. This diagram sort of represents that. But really what we want is a network, and then we want independent connections to the workstations and servers, and then each one should have a separate IP address. So I hope you can kind of get the idea from this diagram. So our virtual networks are managed under File Preferences. So here's our VirtualBox Manager, and we go to File, in the network. And here you can see, sorry about that, the networks that we have, the NAT networks that we've created. We're actually going to add the CyberRange network later on. By default, each VBox has its own separate NAT configuration. We saw that in the diagram. And then we want to have all our VBoxes in a single NAT network so they can work together. If we take a look at this workstation here, I'm using Control Home to bring up the menu. We go to Machine Settings, Network, and you can see the default configuration where it's attached to NAT. Not NAT network, just NAT. That makes it independent. Machine settings. So you can see this machine is also set up in the same way. I'll drag this up a little bit. So I'm going to go to PowerShell on the server, do ipconfig. And the IP version 4 address is 10.0.2.15. Let's bring up the command prompt in our workstation. And I'm going to want to refer to this again, so I'm going to pin that to the taskbar so it's easy to find. So we type ipconfig, and hopefully you can see here 10.2.15. It's the same IP address in this VBox is that one. So it kind of confirms what I've been saying, that each connection is independent, and that's how the two machines can have the same IP address and then still get to the internet. So let's set up our network so we can put them all together. File, Preferences, Network. Let's add our network. Let's edit that. We'll call this the CyberRange. You can see that the network address begins with 10. That means that this is a Class A address, and the 10 when it starts with the number 10 means that it's a private address. So that first octet is the network, and then we have in this network prefix notation 24 bits that are available for our host IDs on the 10 network. 2 to the 24th power is about 16 million. So that means that we have 16 million computers that we can connect to this CyberRange. That should be enough. Gives us a lot of growing room. So by default, we have DHCP. DHCP, or Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, is important because it's a service that'll manage the IP addresses on our network. We haven't had to configure those. They're just given automatically through DHCP. Another thing, DHCP, once it assigns a network, crosses it off the list, so when the next computer comes on, it can give it an unused IP address, and so on, up to 16 million times in this particular case. So it's a great thing to have by default. When we get to our domain controller, we're going to have to manually configure, but for right now, we can use DHCP. Created the network. Right, before we actually, well, we've already done that. You've seen the 15. So let's activate it for our computer. So I go from attached to NAT. I go to my NAT networks. There are a bunch of them. So I can select from this list and get the CyberRange and then say OK. When I do that, the network connection is going to be reset, and you can see the X there. And then the X indicated that the adapter had been restarted. Then you saw a yellow triangle with an exclamation point. That was when the computer was getting an IP address from DHCP. And then you can see the finished result here is that we have internet access. So that was good. Sometimes that can take a while. I've actually had to go and get the mail while the VBox took its time and negotiating with DHCP for an IP address. So if that happens to you, you just need something handy that you can do while it's trying to figure everything out. Let's put this network or this VBox on the same network. It's attached to NAT, of course. We go to the NAT network, we pick from the list, we go to the CyberRange, we say OK. And then the same thing happens here. You get the red X, then the triangle, and then it pops up. So I'm going to skip through that. I really don't want to deal with that now. So anyway, now that our adapter is properly reset, we can use ipconfig to see what it reset it to. And here we're still using 10.02.15. And here we're using 10.0.2.4. They're different IP addresses, which is excellent. We can test our connection with ping, packet internet groper. And ping will send what's called an ICMP echo request. And what happens then is it sends out a packet to this IP address and effectively bounces off the computer we're looking for and then returns the echo. And when that happens, when we get the echo reply, we know that the computer is reachable. Using ping is an excellent test to see if you're successful on attaching to the same network as everybody else. So in this particular case, we can't see the computer, which is okay. Because all that means in this particular case is that the firewall may be active. Let's check it and see. So we go to inbound rules. We find file and print sharing. Here it is. And you can see in this case, it's not enabled. So what happens is with the more modern server, 2012, this can be turned off in order to protect the server from being discovered by hackers. So in order to complete this particular step, we just need to enable it. Now, I've noticed in the computer labs when I'm working with students that some people don't have to do that. And I think that's because of those little pop-up boxes on the side that turned it off. So let's do our ping again. Here, all I have to do is do the up arrow. And you can see now we're getting our replies. The echo is successful. So what that means is that both computers are now on the same network, and that we're going to be ready to install our domain controller and to then join the workstation to the domain. So now it's up to you. You're going to need to have this assignment before we can join a computer to the domain. So you need to do it. You need to document any errors with screenshots that happen to you along the way, and you need to add them to your report as you work. Later on, if you can find an explanation for it, go ahead and put that in. If you can't, then just say you can't. Sometimes there are workarounds, so you can do it a different way. So you don't always have to solve the error. You can find another way to accomplish the same thing. That'll all be good for your learning experience and also for getting credit on the assignment. So when you're done, you're going to need to document the final result, showing the ping, for example, is an excellent thing that should be in there. Add some kind of brief commentary to your whole report, including, like I said, the error messages if you got any. And then you want to save it and you want to upload it to the assignment so I can see it. Now, sometimes people send me stuff by email, and that's great because then I know you're working on it. Ultimately, though, the only way to submit the assignment is to put it in through the grade system. So good luck. Thank you for watching this video.